the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
Racial segregation has served as a barricade to the 1960s African American population through unconstitutional laws. Activist Martin Luther King Jr. responded to this discrimination by harnessing the power of communication through speech and protest to positively advocate equality in America for the Black community.
I have a dream. These few simple words still echo across the world. Through the ability of speech, Martin Luther King Jr. changed the world. Without fists, without weapons, without violence. With language. But how has language altered our past or changed our future? How did King's speech impact America? The 1960s, an era both contaminated and nourished by protests. Across the nation, there were great amounts of discrimination against the Black population. There was silent communications like the Montgomery bus boycott, as well as immediate aggressive protests on the city streets. Both of these are forms of language. Throughout history, the gift of speech has brought us together but has also driven us apart. In the case, Martin Luther King Jr. used peaceful variations of protest to change America for the better by achieving equality for all, no matter their race.
Throughout the entirety of King's early life, he experienced the mocking and humiliating Jim Crow laws, along with many other restrictions on matters such as where he could use the restroom, where he could eat, who he could be with, and even what drinking fountain he could access. Simply riding public transport was a privilege, but even so, they were forced to sit in the back and give up their seat to the white when faced with the situation. In the midst of this common belief that one group acquired greater superiority than the other, King was born on January 15, 1929, within one of the nation's southern states, Atlanta, Georgia. It was then home to many thriving African Americans. As he adapted to these laws, King grew fed up with them and made it his mission, his dream, to achieve equality for all, no matter their origins. King learned a great deal from his father, who was a Baptist pastor. Martin Luther King Sr. inspired this young activist with his powerful, moving words. As the young King grew, he figured he wouldn't want to pursue the same passion as his father, but in the end, he settled with his wife in Alabama to become a motivational pastor. People from all over would come and listen to his dream. Simply communicating to the world of such a dream and converting it to actuality was a path Martin Luther King Jr. was willing to take.
King became a well-accomplished activist. His journey to develop an even playing field for the Black community was littered with hardships, but that didn't keep King from using communication as his primary source of movement. In the year of 1957, he founded the SCLC, otherwise known as the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. This was an organization designed to push the civil rights movement. According to History.com, a well-known speech of King's, "I Have a Dream," was delivered in 1963. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, a monument to the president who a century earlier had brought down the institution of slavery in the United States, he shared his vision of a future in which this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. Furthermore, in 1964, King became the youngest ever to receive a Nobel Peace Prize for his outstanding efforts as a successful activist. But come 1968, while his time in America was wonderful, Martin Luther King Jr. was shot in Tennessee by James Earl Ray. His death was mourned throughout the nation, but while he may have left this world, his dream did not.